think this presentation is uploaded already, so it should start recently. Okay, great. Then looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about the climate change. And we all know like the in the UK flooding is really a big problem, and we also are facing the problem of climate change. So how the climate change is going to make flooding worse than before? And so we actually take a very specific perspective on the critical services here. So, okay, let me look at the first slides. Yeah. So this is the Environment Agency 2024 report on flood and also coastal, which means of the flood from the sea, erosion risk in England. And here we can see like they have a categorization on different infrastructures, critical infrastructures. And we can see here, like the emergency services, the medical facilities and emergency services, they have quite also like a moderate risk. And so like, however, you can thinking, so the risk management specifically at the facilities like hospitals or fire rescue stations is one thing. Another thing is that can the people who need emergency service have access to the hospitals, or can we send the emergency vehicles to the places with people who need it? And so this is another question. So we are thinking about this. This is actually a indirect impact pathway. So flooding impact roads, and because of the road disruption of the road access, then we lose. We see the disruption of emergency services. So this is the perspective we're taking. And so our key questions is how much may climate change increases the flood risk, and which impacts the road access to critical services. And here the model is very simple. We have the data from Environment Agency, and we have the risk maps from rivers and sea and also surface water. And we have the road network. Here we actually model all of the roads in England, which is quite big network. And here we look at 2 emergency services, fire stations and hospitals. And here we evaluate how by interacting the intersection, the flood risk map with the road network in GIS, and we are able to see which part of the roads have the risk of flooding, and we evaluate how the vehicle can find the valid route between the facilities like fire station, hospital, and the local communities. And also here we can see the folding depths, folding ability of different vehicles. Like for fire station, we know the trucks, and they have higher folding abilities. And also for hospitals, the ambulances, or people may use private vehicle or called taxis. And so we consider like 0.3 meters for private vehicles and ambulances. So yeah, so about the size of the network, actually, so I just mentioned we include all the small roads and local roads and residential ways. Actually, it's come as a surprise, which means the network is very complex. And actually, initially, it takes like 10 hours to run the first analysis, and we try to optimize the algorithms. And the price is that maybe people will ask, like, should we model the hospital capacities and different type of services in the hospitals, and should we model the the dynamic traffics on roads, which make the result more realistic? But actually, so this we need to manage the trade-off between this, and so we choose that we model all the roads to make the accessibility, focus on the accessibility assessment. So around the neighborhoods, we use the LSOA, which is defined by the Office for National Statistics. There's around 33,000 neighborhoods we modeled in this analysis. And so we overlaying these different layers of them in the model, like fire rescue facilities, healthcare, and then the neighborhoods. And then we have the layer of road topologies, and which basically we consider the widths of the roads. Like, those certain big roads has like 4 lanes or 6 lanes. And, for emergency services, they have the right to, in certain circumstances, they can drive through in different directions. So here we also consider this. And so the scenarios, so again, so it's about the climate change. So the assessment, and we include 2 services and 2 different flood sources, the surface water and the river and the sea. So these actually, they have 2 different mechanisms. Rivers and the seas are from, in larger area, the runoff will concentrate in the rivers, and also from seas different. And for surface water, more in the urban environments, like the drainage system don't have the insufficient capacity to deal with the precipitation. And then we look at the intensity of the rainfall scenarios. So this is given based on the environmental agency data. So it's from more frequent than 30 years, and 30 years, 100, 100, 1,000, and over 100,000 years. So the climate change we considered. So first, we have the no climate change baseline. It's basically based on historical data, and the second one is RCP 8.5, which we believe is the worst case scenario. And so the analysis, basically we use the estimated travel time between the facilities of emergency services and the neighborhoods. And we prove very simple, a basic accessibility indicator. So which we combine the baseline travel time. And so in UK, we use 7 minutes time, and the estimated travel time during flooding. So this the model output. So this again, so this national level screening is because I just mentioned that there's a trade-off between the model accuracy and its complexity. Yeah. So we can compare first. You can look at the figure like hospital access and fire rescue access. So you can see a big difference. And we think this mainly come from the falling ability of the vehicle and also the distribution of the facility. And so if you look at the color, so the darker color means they receive more impact from the climate changes. Yeah, so you can see even the darkest one, the negative 100%, which means so in the future, because of climate change, there will be a complete cutoff of the access to the emergency services in these areas. Okay, and so about the overall impact of climate change. So we compute the statistics. So the average from the local neighborhoods to council level. So this list are all the councils in England, and we have 2 curves: the blue one, the no climate change baseline, and also the orange one, the climate change scenario. And the area between them is actually the gap. You can see the gap is actually the impact from climate change. And what is interesting here is for example, if we have 2 cities, one high-risk city and a low-risk and another low-risk city, and in the climate change, and which one would you expect to receive more impact in the future? So this sort of counterintuitive is so if you look at the left side, which has the higher risk, however, the gap is not necessarily the biggest. So which means if you only look at the historical data to make decisions, actually will be problematic. This is because of the heterogeneity of the impact from climate change. Yeah, so okay, so another thing we find interesting, like the climate change also drive a dominant and flood source to change at the neighborhood level, because here we have the data for two different kind of floods, river and sea flood, and also the surface water flood. And then we see in the climate change scenarios, some of the neighborhoods previously they have in face of more severe river and sea floods. However, in the future, the dominant threat will be surface water flooding. So this will be a changing in the future. So which actually, the implication is that, so at this place, we need to reconsider the flood defense, because the mechanisms of two type of flooding are different. So also the flood defense strategy will be quite different. Okay, we also look at the relationship between geographical factors of neighborhoods and also climate change impact. Here we find certain patterns when we divide the neighborhoods into different groups like coastal, inland, or urban, rural, and also we consider riverlands of the neighborhoods. And then here first we find that actually coastal city, and compared to coastal city, inland neighborhoods or cities, they have high impact from climate change, and which is kind of we don't expect. And the other things like for river and sea flooding, and they impact rural areas more, and for surface water flooding impacts urban area more. And for riverlands, which is aligned with expectation that a longer river means more severe impact from river and sea flooding. Yeah, and we also consider like the combination effects of these geographical features. So we regrouped all the neighborhoods, consider their geographic features. Like, so we find certain groups like coastal plus rural and high riverlands. These neighborhoods receive the highest impact from climate change. However, if you look at the size of this group, it's actually a minority group. Yeah, so this is all my content to share today. Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. We are a little bit behind the schedule, but we should have time for one question, I guess. Is there a question?